I had a period where I was absolutely obsessed with the competition, obsessed with what everyone's doing, and it's not fair, and they're not playing the game right and whatever else, and it would eat me up and consume me, and it's not healthy. And I really have made an effort over the last 12 months to shift my focus onto ourselves. Don't worry what everyone else is doing. Stay true to our authenticity, to our purpose, to our ecosystem. And if a client or a partner gets it, great, they're the right partner for us.
Hi, I'm Belden Menkus. Welcome to the Purposeful Strategist, the podcast that shifts the conversation about purpose and strategy from what organizations should do to what business leaders are doing and what they've learned along the way. My guest today is Simon Mitchell, CEO of KERB. When Simon joined me back in 2022, we talked about how KERB had grown from a street food market into an incubator and community platform, supporting independent traders who are also building out new ventures like their Covent Garden food hall and event catering arm. At the time, KERB was still working out the balance between being a commercial enterprise and a social enterprise. KERB has grown significantly since then. I'm excited to welcome Simon back to the Purposeful Strategist to hear how KERB has navigated this rapid growth, what it's learned from blending hospitality with social impact, and where they go next. Simon, welcome back to the Purposeful Strategist.
Hi, Belden. How are you?
Yeah, great. Really great to have you back. As I mentioned, when we spoke in 2022, it felt to me, and I think we talked about KERB sort of trying to find the right balance between being a commercial enterprise and a social enterprise. Interested to hear how that balance has evolved as you've grown, and can you help us by maybe painting a picture where KERB is now?
Yeah, it's been a bit of trial and error. It's been a process. We've got some things right. We've got some things wrong, as you would expect. I think the biggest problem we had initially was blurring the lines between the corporate entity and the social enterprise. So we made the decision 12, 18 months ago now to really separate those two businesses and ensure that the social enterprise wasn't kind of feeding the corporate enterprise with vendors and opportunities, and to really separate them, which I think was a big shift for us. And it feels much better now. It feels like they are two very separate entities. However, anyone that works for the corporate entity is still, hugely motivated, inspired by our social enterprise. And there's multiple opportunities to get involved and support as well. But we needed to clearly delineate between the two. I think that was the biggest learning over the last couple of years.
What now is sort of the relative size of those two entities, and what are they each doing?
So the corporate business obviously is much bigger. It's been going 13 years this weekend, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The social enterprise is still only 2 years old, so it employs about a dozen people. Primarily, it's the home of our membership scheme. So all our members, their membership fees feed into that to help fund it. It's where our lunch markets are based. So if you eat from a KERB lunch market, you're supporting the social enterprise, and that's where we kind of incubate the next generation of talent. And then the two main kind of social impact outcomes of that enterprise are our work coaching program, where we take young people that refer to us and we coach them into opportunities and employment. And we've been really successful with that. And the second one is our business coaching team, which is sponsored by McCain. And we've donated well over £250,000 with McCain to help those from disadvantaged backgrounds start their own street food business. So that's the social enterprise. The corporate business continues. It's global, operating in North America, in Germany, in the UK. It's event catering, food halls, and public events, fan zones, things like that. I am pleased to say, however, though, the social enterprise is up and running in San Francisco, which was a big thing for us. And we're hoping in the next 12 months to also launch the social enterprise in Berlin. The way we kind of structure things is that, the corporate business goes first, sets the foundations in a new territory or a new site. And then when it's up and running, when it's established, then we bring in the social enterprise to kind of underpin it.
And are they managerially kind of separate?
100%.
Okay.
So, for instance, in San Francisco, we have a work coach. She runs the programs in our venue in San Francisco, and she reports to the managing director of the social enterprise. So it's clearly, separate. The funding for that person comes primarily from our partners. So when we set up a new venture, we will ask our partner or landlord to help foot the bill for that coach, because the coaching is really what drives the social enterprise. You need the coach to help people. So it's just kind of jointly funded or funded from our partner, and then reports directly into the managing director of the social enterprise.
And what led you to go international? Not early necessarily in terms of years, but in terms of size. It just seems like that's a massive undertaking.
Yeah. Well, we built Seven Dials Market in 2019, very successful, huge building, huge footfall. And when we were looking around for our next opportunity, we didn't want to dilute that in London. We wanted Seven Dials Market to be our home in London and our base and kind of the flagship. And when we looked at kind of other cities in the UK, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, we didn't feel that those cities could sustain something so big 7 days a week. And we didn't want to do a smaller kind of watered down version. We kind of feel like our USP in the food hall market is kind of big. 25,000 square foot, lots of vendors, atmosphere, fun. And we didn't think that could happen anywhere else in the UK. And actually, the opportunity in Berlin first came to me in 2020, just before the pandemic. We loved the site. We're looking for an iconic building, famous building in a big city that has a high footfall of tourists, office workers, and locals, as well as a really good independent food scene. And Berlin ticked all those boxes for us. Obviously, COVID and various other things delayed that project, so it only opened this year. But from the moment we saw it, it felt like this is the next one. And Berlin is our second flagship. We do have other food halls around the world, but they're all under management agreements. They're all white label. There are only two KERB food halls, Seven Dials Market in London and KERB Berlin in Berlin.
And do you see a third on the horizon of the same scale, or is it sort of there's only a few places on the planet that are going to allow that idea really to come to full fruition?
No, definitely. We see more. The point where we are now is we've had a really big year. We've opened 3 sites this year. So we opened Corner in Canada Water, which is a JV with Broadwick and British Land. It's kind of part food hall, part event space, part live music venue. Mm-hmm. We then opened Berlin a month later, which is obviously really important to us. We've worked on that for 5 years. It's huge. And then a couple of months ago, we opened KERB Social Club, which is our take on a British pub meets American sports bar. And that's in Spitalfields Market. So that pipeline kind of wasn't planned, but with delays on some sites and other sites coming up quicker than you expected, led to a really busy year this year. So it's kind of, let's just pause for a minute. Let's make sure they're all working well. We're happy with all of them, and then let's go again. So we're at a really interesting moment now where we don't have a next site planned. We have lots of opportunities, all around the world, and many in the UK too. And it's a real, what do we do next moment now? So it's, do we go big again? Do we do another flagship in another city, in another country? Berlin was a lot of hard work. I probably wasn't quite so grey when we started that project as I am now. Or, do we focus on the smaller format, KERB Social Club? Do we do a few more of them in the UK, in London? That's kind of where we are right now, is making that decision.
And throughout all that, I mean, that's enormous growth. It seems like a fair amount of additional complexity. As you kind of come through that, and with the social aspect of it sort of being now more separate, what would you describe the purpose of KERB to be?
The purpose of KERB has never changed. We exist to create opportunities for independent food businesses. It's very simple.
So that's all been the same?
That's the same wherever we are. If you go to San Francisco, if you go to Salahal, every single one of those businesses is a local, Bay Area business. The beer is from a Bay Area brewery. If you go to Emeryville in Oakland, every vendor there is from the area, same, local beers. If you go to Berlin, other than the cheese bar, which is the one business we bought from London, the conveyor belt of cheese, every single business in Berlin is an independent Berlin food business. Our beer partner is Berlo, which is a brilliant local Berlin craft brewery. We're very passionate about that. So wherever we operate, we have a site in Copenhagen. Again, there's 11 vendors in that site, all local, all from Copenhagen, all independent. That's our kind of purpose, is to create these opportunities for these food businesses, and their success is our success. I always talk about this. I think the big differentiator between KERB and our competition is we really work with our vendors to ensure their success. It's not a landlord-tenant relationship, it's a partnership, and it's how can we help you to be successful? So that hasn't changed.
That's really great to hear, because if I wanted to be cynical, okay, great. They've hived off this social enterprise. That was their past. Now the future's all go, go, go. Let's just go make money. And I'm hearing, no. we were trying to get real clear about who was doing what. We've done that, but it's all still the same purpose.
Absolutely. Before we created KERB Plus, our social enterprise, purpose and impact was at our heart. It just wasn't called out. It wasn't ring fenced. So, KERB has always been a purpose driven business. We've just kind of ring fenced the heartbeat of the business into a social enterprise. But even the commercial entity, has purpose and impact at its heart. We take sustainability and how we manage our waste really seriously. We take supporting independent businesses really seriously. Being a good employer, we take really seriously. These are the things that drive us. So you could argue that. But if you spent a day in our office, you'd see actually the opposite is true. And the thing that motivates the team, the thing that we always get asked questions about is the social enterprise. How can we do more? How can we go quicker? How can we have more impact? That I'm constantly being challenged by the team. That is the thing that drives us, albeit a separate entity.
You talked about the social club, sort of part sports bar, part pub. Are you seeing that as something that could also act as a kind of community hub? Not just people come, they eat, they drink, they have a good time, but actually somehow feel part of a community and maybe even begin to build relationships and do things that would be more difficult to do without that.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, the original idea for KERB Social Club was less to do with an American sports bar and more to do with merging a traditional British pub, which we know is dying, and a working men's club. That kind of community space where there is a bar, but there is also entertainment and you can bring your kids and there's food and there might be a show one night, there might be bingo the next night. That was really the idea. It then took a bit of a turn with my travels to America where I was like, why is no one doing a brilliant sports bar in London? So it's kind of now a mashup of all three. But to your question, absolutely, that's how we see it working. And if you visit the space, you'll see that the ground floor is a traditional sports bar. But the first floor has 5 rooms that are available for private hire. One of them is just a large blank canvas. And yes, that is a space we will open up to the community. We already last week started hosting the Spitalfields Market Chess Club. They go outside in the summer, but it's now cold, so they've come inside. And community is at the heart of that. And it's not just a sports bar. We want to have various programming that everyone feels comfortable coming to, whether it's bingo, whether it's a quiz night, whether it's a chess night. We've built the place to be really inclusive. It's not a traditional, sports bar or pub with leather and wood. It's very bright. It's got KERB's tropical palette. It's not beer heavy. There's some great cocktails, wine. There's a great program of non-alcoholic cocktails, soft drinks. The idea was to make it inclusive and to be something for the community. We are in the heart of Spitalfields Market. So this one is probably less community focused than others might be in the future, depending on where they go. But, we'll see as that concept evolves. It's only been open, as I say, a couple of months, and we're still kind of finding our feet and working out what works, what doesn't, what people like, what they don't. But it's a really fun, exciting project.
How do you measure success for something like that? I mean, I'm sure there's some commercial, financial metrics, but beyond that, how do you measure that it's actually working?
I think it's feedback. Customer feedback, but also, community and industry feedback. One of the bizarre things when we opened Seven Dials Market was we were open 6 months before COVID and we lost money, every single one of them. But people were saying amazing things about us, that this is a great space, that we're running it really well, really, really complimentary. And lots of the opportunities we have now came out of that 6-month period. So we weren't making money, but it was creating opportunities. So I think, KERB Social Club is part of our commercial business. It's important it makes money, particularly in this climate where in hospitality it's so hard to make money. You can't take that lightly. So profit comes first, and then it's the impact, obviously, and then it's what does this lead to? What are the other opportunities? What are people saying? Where can it go? So there's various different metrics.
You're now supporting more than about 160 independent businesses. So how do you maintain the culture? I think one aspect it was sort of no VIPs. It feels like it's a very open, collaborative culture. As you get bigger, more complex, and now you're international, how do you keep that alive?
Communication. We've promoted someone within to be head of membership, and that person is responsible solely for the community. So regular communications, regular feedback, surveys, etc. We've got a big presence in Birmingham now that we didn't have pre-COVID. So, Jess, who's our membership manager, and Sam from our food team were both up in Birmingham last week, meeting our members, saying hello, trying the food, asking for their feedback. So it's communication. It's letting them know what we're up to, what's working for our members, what they'd like to see more of, what they'd like to see less of. It's not easy. There's no doubt we do more for the ones in London than we do the ones in Copenhagen and San Francisco, but that's all evolving as we grow. We have an annual summit every year where we bring everyone together, discuss our plans for the year, listen to their feedback, offer some help and support. Particularly in the last couple of years with the struggles in hospitality, we've pivoted that event to be more kind of thought leadership and experts from industry coming in about how you can improve your margins or make any margins through sourcing, an expert on marketing, etc., etc. So we're trying to add value to their businesses. We give back to our members in two ways. One is opportunities. So internationally, it's slightly different, but in the UK, every member receives every opportunity and they get to apply. Now, that could be a spot at Seven Dials Market. That could be a trading spot at Aston Villa Football Club. That could be a corporate event at the Natural History Museum. Every trader receives every inquiry. Everyone can apply for that job. If it's an external event, our client will decide who they want to pick. If it's for us, if it's Seven Dials, we decide. But it's a democracy. So we create opportunities, number one. And the second one is add value. And that's really where we're trying to grow with our membership. Where else can we add value to our memberships? Can we introduce them to better suppliers for sourcing to save money? Can we help them with insurance, get them a better deal on their insurance through collective bargaining? How can we add value to that membership? So I think that the community is different to what it was 10, 12 years ago. It's bigger. I think that's in some ways a good thing. It's not such an exclusive club. It's more inclusive, but it is still a community. And I think the membership fees aren't a lot, £5 a week. But that money goes into the social enterprise. So it's not like we're pocketing that for our profit. It's just a barometer of who is in and who is out of membership. And they can feel good that they're supporting our social enterprise.
What's if I could put it this way, the life cycle of a member? How do they become a member? What happens after that? And if they eventually move on beyond KERB, where do they move on to?
I mean, the ways into KERB has changed quite dramatically. It used to be that you could only join KERB by trading on the street and that you had to have an existing street food business before you traded with KERB, and then you could apply. Through our incubator, we've taken away some of the barriers that we actually help you start your street food business. And we'll give you that first opportunity. But as the world has changed and our business has changed, it's not just solely defined by street food. We're more about independent food operators. So we do take businesses in that have never traded on the street. Someone could have a micro restaurant in Dalston, want to expand, but the property market is such that it's impossible at the moment. So the ways in are different. There's probably 100 different ways. Some people just love the scene. Some people want to work in street food. They want to do the markets in the week. They want to go off to festivals in the summer, do the odd corporate event, and that's a lifestyle thing, and they're never going to change. And we have some of those people that have been with us for 13 years since KERB started. We have some that see it as a shortcut to a restaurant. And that was really prevalent pre-COVID. I'm going to start a street food business, kind of get a bit of buzz going, build a following on the street, hopefully get somewhere like Seven Dials Market or another food hall, and then I'll open my first restaurant. That has really changed. And actually, the market has shifted 180 degrees. And we're actually seeing people shutting their restaurants and joining KERB. Because we've been so screwed by our government, particularly in the last 12 months, that it is nigh on impossible to make money in a high footfall area like central London as an independent food business. To make money out of a restaurant is almost impossible. It's that bad with the rent, the rates, the service charges we pay, couple that with the rise in NIC, the rise in London living wage, which we all want to pay, by the way. But the impact of the London living wage is it pushes all the people above them up as well. So, as a result of that budget, we employ less people. Don't get me started on that. But it was an absolute disaster. So we've seen businesses that have had a high street presence shut their high street presence, cut their overheads, and they just trade with KERB. And that may be just on events. It may be a fixed site, but it is certainly more cost effective.
And as all that's happening, are you seeing competitors to KERB, people who are doing similar-ish kinds of things, people who are looking for the things you offer? They're sort of substitutable. What's that whole playing field look like?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, we were the only show in town.
Yeah, you were it.
Yeah. In both the food hall sector, in the lunch market sector, and in the event sector, we have multiple competitors now. Very few are doing all three, which gives us a bit of a USP. None of them have an ecosystem like we do. where you can bring through the talent through your stages, incubator, market, events, food hall. And I think that's what gives us our authenticity. But, there are players coming into the market that are property companies masquerading as food halls. There are tech companies masquerading as event companies, with a tech platform. So it's a very challenging competitive landscape where some food hall operators offer landlords a lot more money than we would offer. Some event operators offer our clients better commissions than we would ever offer. So our USP has to be quality and authenticity. I had a period where I was absolutely obsessed with the competition, obsessed with what everyone's doing, and it's not fair, and they're not playing the game right, and whatever else, and it would eat me up and consume me, and it's not healthy. And I really have made an effort over the last 12 months to shift my focus onto ourselves. Don't worry what everyone else is doing. Stay true to our authenticity, to our purpose, to our ecosystem. And if a client or a partner gets it, great, they're the right partner for us. And if they don't, and they're just interested in the money, they're probably not the right partner for us. And that's been really, really helpful for my mindset, but also for the business. Stick to our guns. These are our terms. If you want to work with KERB, these are our terms. And if you're just about the money, go and work with someone else.
I have seen CEOs, management teams get really obsessed by what the competition is doing, so much so that they forget what were we trying to do. What I hear you saying is, in the face of all that, we've just doubled down on who we are and what we're about.
We have now, but I really fell into that trap.
Yeah, it's easy to.
We had it very easy for quite a long time. I think I've been with KERB 10 years now. The first, let's say, 5 years of my tenure as CEO, there wasn't much competition. We had really rapid growth. People were very complimentary about our business, and all of a sudden there was a lot of competition. I became obsessed. And it was learning, literally, to focus on ourselves and double down on that has kind of got me out of that hole. I think it's for the better of the business that we all focus on ourselves rather than what everyone else is doing.
You had some projects you were working on. Many of them have now come to fruition. You're in a state where you're thinking, what next? How are you going about that? Who gets involved? What sorts of process are you going through?
We have a lot of conversations. Our board are and have always been very supportive of me and trusting of me that we'll navigate the right course. We have an exec team that's made up of our, people and culture director, my COO, and my FD. We have a commercial director who's joined the business 6 months ago. Whose task is to build out that pipeline, because before that was all on me. It's great to have that support. We're looking at the opportunities. We're looking at the data. We actually employ a data analyst now, which is a new thing for us. But there'll always be an element of KERB of instinct and gut, and that, touch wood, so far has served me well. And there will always be an instinct of, I really like that project. Let's go do it. I can't help myself almost. You have a feeling that this is the one, this is the site. There's some logistical issues, to take into account of where we travel to next. Building in Berlin and setting up a business in Berlin was far more challenging than I ever could have imagined. I think I was very naive. And again, by following my gut, we got very excited about our project without really doing our due diligence about how hard it was going to be to build. And the regulations in Germany are insane around permitting and didn't have much of an understanding for that. So we'll do our research next time, or this time, I should say. So it's a culmination of all those things, but really it's constant conversations about, is the opportunity right? Is it right for us? Is it right for our members? Can we generate impact for those members? Is it commercially viable? Is it a great partner that we want to work with? And that more and more is important. The more and more we do, the more we understand that great partners are important, whether that's a landlord or a JV partner or a management agreement. Do we want to work with this person? Can we see ourselves being in business with them for 10 years? Because that's what you're committing to. And then lastly, and almost most importantly, is do we want to do it? Because the data could say it's great. Commercially, it could look brilliant, could be good for our members, could be a nice partner, but, are we excited by it? We're still a private company. We don't have infinite funds. We can't do every opportunity that crosses our path. Life is short. So let's make sure we do the ones we want to do, and we're going to have fun doing it. So that's a real driver for us. That's why we did the social club. It's an idea I had with one of the founders of KERB years ago on our travels to America. And I guess 18 months ago now, I was on a plane back from New York and I called our property agent. I said, I've had this idea. I explained it to him. I said, I want to do it. Find me a site. And this amazing site came up in Spitalfields Market, which couldn't be more perfect. And that was just, I want to do this. We've been talking about it for years. Now's the time. Let's have a go at this. Let's make it happen and let's see what happens. And it was no more scientific than that.
You used a word there that for me has always been associated with KERB, which is excitement. I mean, yes, it's about food. Of course, it's about food. It's about food. It's about drink. But it's also about this sense that this is really great. This is something different or new or special. Finding a way to keep that excitement alive to the point where the numbers guide you but don't block you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important when we're looking at all of our sites, like how can we make it fun? Thinking back to the opening of Seven Dials Market, I was obsessed with it being like very clean, very clinical, which is hard in a Victorian warehouse, but very uniform. And I think at some point during that build, Petra said to me, we've got to have a bit of fun. We've got to do something that sets it apart from everyone else. And that's where the giant pink lift came from and the giant banana, arcade game, air hockey, just random bits of fun dotted around the place. Some of the tables have chess and drafts boards built into them. You're right. Why do people come to KERB? Why have people come to KERB for years for our parties, our events? It's because they're fun. We're not just a food event, catering company. We want to create that fun. So that really stuck with me. Berlin is incredible. It's an old cinema. It was the massive IMAX in the heart of Berlin where all the movie premieres happened. So if you see the design, it plays to that heritage. And we stole some of the bits and pieces from the cinema before it was demolished to use in the build. Under one of the staircases, we've built the world's, I say the world, it probably is, the world's smallest cinema. So we have a 2-seater cinema under the staircase in Berlin for no reason other than it's fun. It generates no revenue. You don't have to pay to go in. It's a nod to the cinema. It's a silly idea we came up with at some point in the last couple of years. That's the other thing that I hope sets us apart is that authenticity and our ecosystem, but also the fact that, our environments are not sterile. They are not cookie cutter. We don't want them all to be the same. In fact, the opposite is true. No two KERB sites are the same. And never will they be, because we want to, stay true to the location and to the building we're in and respect that. But also we want to have a bit of fun and play to that as well. So I think that's one of our strengths.
What role do you hope KERB plays in shaping the future of hospitality and food entrepreneurship?
I think twofold. One, we've always seen ourselves as a platform for opportunity, and we take that responsibility really seriously, and it's what drives us. More recently, particularly in the UK, we are becoming a champion for these independent businesses. So we've just partnered with a couple of organisations to push and champion the Save Hospitality campaign. Something that UK Hospitality started, but UK Hospitality aren't really for independent businesses, they're for the big pub chains. So we wanted to take what they started and bring it down to the grassroots level. So we've surveyed our members, we've started a campaign on social media where we're running a petition and we are lobbying people to sign the petition and to write to their MP to ask or beg for some support for hospitality in the next budget, because they got it so wrong last time. And I feel really strongly and passionate about this. It doesn't impact KERB as much as it does our members, but still, we are for them. The NIC rise and the London Living Wage has meant that everyone I know in hospitality employs less people. That's the fundamental effect of the budget change they made. Now, why is that a problem? It's a problem, obviously, for employment stats, but actually, hospitality is one of the easiest businesses, industries to enter at an entry-level position. We can train people up from all kinds of backgrounds. We've proved that through our coaching programs. So this is a real leveler, that can help those in society who maybe are in most need and aren't employed. And instead of driving us to create more jobs and to grow and expand, and by creating more jobs and expanding, you put more money into the exchequer, we are all battening down the hatches. How do we employ less people? And I can tell you firsthand at Seven Dials Market, we've changed our way of operating so that we can employ less people, because the knock-on effect of that budget on our P&L was 6 figures on one site. And that's completely unsustainable with inflation and everything else. So we had no choice but to employ less people. So we are, challenging the government to say, you've got this wrong. back hospitality, allow us to grow, allow us to expand. We are the number one job creators. We need some help here because the high street is dying. Hospitality is dying. You hear of a small independent hospitality business closing its doors every single week, and we need some help. So we are pivoting to really try and champion that and be that voice that helps the little guy.
There's a lot in the press about how we have a cost of living crisis. I'm not in any way saying that there aren't people who are struggling financially. We have a crisis of not enough people employed productively enough. When you look at it that way, the whole problem looks very different. And that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. We've got a stagnant economy. Why do you grow? You grow to create opportunities to pay people more. We're not growing, we're not paying people more. So that's why you've got a cost of living crisis. If we could keep up with inflation, we wouldn't have a problem. But we're being kept down.
Yeah.
And that means that we can't keep up with inflation. And that's why you have a cost of living crisis, because there's not enough people employed. There's not enough, businesses creating jobs, and there's not enough opportunity to grow in those jobs. Without growth, you die. We need to keep growing KERB to create opportunities for those behind me. I'm not going to be the CEO forever. Where's the next CEO coming from? And the rest of our leadership team.
Simon, don't say that. Don't say you're not going to be.
If you don't grow, then we lose our best people.
Yeah.
Because we're not creating opportunities for them. So we train someone up. They're brilliant. They love the business. They really do. They want to stay, but there's not an opportunity for progression. So they leave. So you've got to grow. So yeah, on a macro level, we're not able to create those opportunities for people to earn more money. And therefore we have a cost of living crisis. You're right.
When you think about the purposeful strategist in you, what's the question you're asking yourself most often right now?
The only question I ask myself is, how can we have more impact? We've opened these 3 sites. I don't want to ever be accused of being a fraud. We're doing great, but I always feel like we could do more. So, we had a senior management team away day last Friday. We're always asking ourselves, how can we do more? What areas are we not focusing on? Big one at the moment, can we do more with food waste? Between our ecosystem, we produce a lot of food waste. Can we do more with that? Supply chain, that's a big one for us. 160 members procure a lot of stuff. How can we help with their supply chain to make sure that they are procuring also from independent businesses? Because the knock-on effect of that is huge. Can we buy from a local artisan? Where are the areas where we can do that? Because, our network is such now that the impact of that and small changes in that supply chain could be huge. So the 2 questions I ask myself is, what's next? And how can we have more impact?
Anything else we haven't talked about that you'd like listeners to know?
The one big thing I'm asking everyone I speak to at the moment is to support hospitality, support independence. Where there is a cost of living crisis, where everyone thinks twice about going out. When you are going out, when you are spending money, try and spend it with an independent business. Let's not spend our money in soulless private equity back chains. Let's support the little guy. And trust me, they are struggling. There is no independent business that is absolutely flying right now. It is hard. It is really hard. So the only thing I'd ask listeners is, when you go out, think twice and think local and independent.
It's very clear in your mind who the good guys are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, we work with the big boys. Compass Group are the biggest catering company in the world. They're a major investor in KERB. We've worked with IKEA in San Francisco. We work with businesses. That's fine, but it's the output. Is how can we channel that machine, that Compass machine, to get opportunities for our members, for the independent business? How can we use the IKEA machine to create something really amazing and impactful in the Tenderloin in San Francisco? If you work with the big guys, how can we leverage them to help the little guys? That's how I think about it. Don't be scared of the big guys. We've been accused of selling out many times. My answer is we don't. We know how to leverage the big guys to help the little guys.
Simon, really exciting to hear kind of where you've gotten to, and particularly to hear there are things in the pipeline. And my guess is if you and I had spoken a few more years, there'd be something, you might not even have sight of it yet, but it's turned out to be something that's big and that you're going after.
Yeah, for sure.
So wish you well with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Purposeful Strategist. In addition to being available on our website, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, please do follow us and leave us a 5-star review. It helps others find the podcast. Thanks again, and join us soon for the next episode of The Purposeful Strategist.